and we wanted to ask you some questions about how you feel about World War One and how 100 years on, why we should still remember it.
I think that it's important to remember World War One as many people died, and it was it was a great barrier for the world and created like new allies and enemies.
What about you? How do you
I
feel?
think we should remember it because it was a waste of lives. Because in the long run, it didn't solve anything, and now, 100 years on, we can now see the aspects of what it did help.
Yeah, how about you?
I think we should remember because many people gave their lives for a great cause though, and we should remember what they've done for us.
I agree. How about you, Georgia?
I feel that we should remember because we want to prevent that kind of thing from happening again and remember all those people that sacrificed themselves in the war.
Definitely. So Georgia, what are you planning to get out of the Battlefield's tour?
I want to learn more about World War One and how it started, the main participants of it, how many people lost their lives from all the different countries, and what they contributed to the war, because I don't know that much about it, but I'm very interested in it, so I would like to know more.
I'm definitely the same. I mean, I studied history at GCSE and we didn't focus much on Britain and the World War One, so I'd love to learn more about that. And since I'm studying history at A level, it will definitely help me in my education, and it's also good to remember the people that sacrificed their lives, and I think it's going to be quite emotional.
Yeah, I feel that too.
What do you want to focus on during the tour?
I think I want to focus on trying to remember the people that died and just remembering their legacy, and also trying to learn how to prevent the younger generation, like their ignorance of what happened, trying to prevent that so that they understand what people contribute towards the war.
A lot of people just forget about World War One and World War Two and don't tend to venture into that.
Or they learn more about World War Two,
Yeah.
but never about World War One. So I
Yeah.
think that because it's been 100 years, it's very essential for us to make that gap and make sure they understand what happened.
Definitely, I'd love to focus on some more personal stories as well, not just World War One as a whole. You know, some people have stories like that would be like to hear. So, what do you want to do whilst on the battlefield? The stretch of it.
I think that we should, look at it and remember it and try and, because there will be a lot of graves and it will be very emotional, but try not to make it too upsetting. Try to look at it positively and to remember these people and not just be upset about it, And I think
Definitely, it should be quite overwhelming. So, we should definitely take pictures.
Yeah, to show the people what it's like.
You've got to come back and present it.
Yeah.
And write a blog. So, what are you planning to do when you come back to school?
Well, over the course of the trip, I'm hoping that we could do some sort of maybe a blog or a diary to account of what happens on each day during the activities, during the different places, especially in the main city or in Belgium and in France that we're going to visit, to show people what we did, and then maybe present it to people, to show the younger students especially, and because we're older and we're representing the school, to try and show exactly what happened. I just wanted to ask how you feel about World War One now, before we go on the trip, just to reflect about it.
At the moment, I feel a little bit numb, is the word. I'm like a blank page. I don't know much about World War One. I haven't got much emotion, but hopefully once I go on the trip, I'll start to hopefully learn more, and therefore I will become more emotional. I'm quite an emotional person.
Yeah.
So I can see myself getting quite upset, and then when I come back I can talk about how I felt on the trip and how it kind of opened me up to World War One and the people that sacrificed their lives. What about you? How do you feel?
I'm quite excited because I want to learn about it so that I can show other people, what happened, and to create this legacy. And I'm also quite nervous, but also like apprehensive to see other people's reactions to it. Older people, younger people to see how they feel, how they react to it differently.
Sometimes it's quite hard to like deal with your emotions when you're there. You don't know
Especially
how to feel.
some people have had, you know, family members that have fought in the war. I think that it'd be quite interesting to see their reaction and their feelings towards it.
Yeah, it's very nerve-wracking, overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below.
Right, well here we are now at Ulster Tower. Ulster Tower is the memorial erected by the people of Northern Ireland. This is the Northern Ireland after the partition of Ireland in 1920, late 1921, early 1922. And the tower itself, and I'm sure we're going to pan around in a minute, looks like is a replica of Helen's Tower at the Clandeboy estate in Northern Ireland. And so when it was said that when the soldiers of the Ulster Division left after their training, where they were on Helen's Tower on the Clandeboy estate, as they left Belfast Lock and looked behind, the last thing they saw was this tower, Helen's Tower behind you. And so that's why the Ulstermen created this memorial here, very close to a place called Schwaben Redoubt, which they captured on the 1st of July 1960, that the Ulster Division erected their memorial. And behind me, you can see the 9 Victoria Cross winners of the Ulster Division throughout the course of the First World War, including one, Private Billy McFadzean of the Belfast Volunteers, who won the first Victoria Cross on the Battle of the Somme when he was carrying a box of grenades up to the front line. One of the grenades dropped out, the pin came out, the spring went, and Billy McFadzean decided that rather than have any of his friends killed, he laid down on the box of grenades and took the full force of the explosion himself and won a posthumous Victoria Cross. And his name is on the Tietval Memorial, not half a mile from here.
Standing outside the Ulster Memorial Tower, we feel very emotional. Around us at this moment in time, there is only wind and wind and wind.
This is the inside of the memorial room. It has plaques and wreaths dedicated to all the soldiers. This room is about 16 feet square and holds a book of remembrance for visitors to sign. The marble tablet inside is inscribed with the words, "This tower is dedicated to the glory of God, in grateful memory of the officers, non-commissioned officers and men of the 36th Ulster Division and the sons of Ulster in other forces who laid down their lives in the Great War, and all of their comrades in arms who, by divine grace, were spared to testify the glorious deeds." On the wall there are words inscribed as follows: "Dominant over sea and land, Son's love built me and I hold, Ulster's love in lettered gold." The room may be small, but the silence inside the room and the coldness and the wind outside the room made us feel how much the Irish soldiers had been through 100 years ago.
Opposite the tower is the Connaught Cemetery. Once again, thousands of white graves spread all around the cemetery.
Bhutan village remained in Allied hands from March 1915 to the armistice, although during the German advances of the summer of 1918 it was practically on the front line. Railway Hollow Cemetery is in the British support line of July 1916, about 1,100 metres west of Serre and 200 metres west of the plantation called Mark Corps. The cemetery contains 107 Commonwealth burials of the First World War, 44 of which are unidentified. There are also 2 French War graves. The cemetery was designed by W.C. von Berg.
Okay, and then they understand what's happening next. Never think about any emotion at all. It's all just a job after that. And then I'll begin to think about tactically how I would take that objective. I've been told, you're going to go and take that. The rest of it's up to me. How I get from A to B, how I destroy that enemy on that location is all down to me. So I'll go through my checklist of tactically, how is this going to work? What does the ground look like in front of me? Pretty bare. It's not ideal. Pretty bare, slightly uphill.
Okay, so the point I'm making is that they're actually thinking about the job in hand. That is absolutely no different to the teachers when they stood in front of their classroom on a Monday morning, right? You're thinking about the job in hand. You're not thinking about your shopping list or anything else at that particular time, but you're thinking about the job in hand. So at 7:30 in the morning, right the way along the 15 miles of the front line, this sound was heard. And 150,000 British soldiers started to get out of their trenches. And like you, they can't climb over the barbed wire fence. So they are going to have to come out through the gaps in the fences and start heading towards the German front line and spread out. Now, the two army divisions, the Kingston division, were told to do it slowly, because one of the things the army tries to do most of the time is keep it simple. And we have a mnemonic in the army called KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And that's what they were trying to do. They weren't trying to lead them all to be slaughtered, because they thought that the artillery for a week had destroyed the German line. Think how far away they've been watching this for 3 days when they eventually came into the line to prepare. So the guys in the reserve trenches, which is pretty much by the building there, the little archway, the Sheffield Memorial Arch, they're watching what's going to happen.
Judith Chima, National Education Coordinator, who works for the UCL Institute of Education and Equity. They have been selected to run the First World War Centenary Battlefield Tours programme on behalf of the Department for Education and the Department for Communities and Local Government.
What they're going to do this evening is a really interesting show and tell about some of the equipment and some of the food and some of the uniforms that were worn in the First World War.
Quite quickly, you can't ask soldiers to keep doing that. So what they did is they used carbonic acid, and we have war diaries, particularly of the Dorset, so they were soaking their rudimentary gas masks, but a week later at Hill 60 in carbolic soapy water, giving them carbolic acid to protect them, and they went up and prepared to be attacked by gas within a week. So the 22nd of April, within that, was the gas hood, which was a real fashion item. Look at this, yeah? And the idea of this was that, any volunteers to put it on? I'm not looking at you. Come on then, up you come. And we'll just stick this on. The idea is this gas hood, and this stuck around for about a year and a half, but you can put it on and just tell me how quickly you get hot. And the idea was to stuff it inside shirts. You can do that. Stuff it inside the shirt so it can't even breathe at all. Yeah? it's impregnated with chemicals to sort of give you some protection, and all it did was breathe out this little flapper hole here, and you have to run around with that. And there were times when water was a real problem, but one of the comments of the Battle of the Seas, for instance, was how much piping they laid down. It was about 10,000 miles of water, fresh water piping, to allow the soldiers to keep filling up their water bottles, and they pushed it forward. But yes, when they're attacking, and these guys will be exactly the same, water becomes a problem. And this last bit here, the putty, word putty comes from the Hindu word for a bandage of sorts, and they wrapped it round. But you would think that the British Army sort of would, if it was so bad, no one else would copy it. But by the end of the war, everybody was wearing putties. French, Germans, everybody. So it couldn't be that bad an idea, because what it did do is protect your ankles and give some support to your legs. These are more modern putties, modern I say. I was issued a set of these in 1974, and they only went round your ankles for not a lot of purpose, as far as I remember. Yeah? But the World War I putties were quite useful. And their uniform was good. We haven't got a set of proper uniform. It was designed the best of the time. The modern uniform, make your own mind up of what they wear, is designed on modern casual clothing, sports clothing. That was exactly the same in 1914. The British soldiers' tunic of 1914 was designed after the best country gear at the time, the Norfolk shooting jacket, made of cotton. And it had plenty of pockets, and the soldiers wore it, and it was battle dress and they wore it. But it had limited water repellent qualities, because it was cotton, it was wool. Yeah. But it was good. The British Army equipment was, of its day, pretty much the best there was, with the exception possibly of the helmet. As I said to my coach, the German helmet was a far, far better design. And have a look at these guys' helmets and see which one you think has been copied. The Brody helmet, the British Brody helmet, or the German steel helmet, the Stahl helmet.
Possible that anyone could be found alive under such a barrage of high explosive. The whole regiment went over to follow slowly in the dark smoke and sound of the guns and explosions. The area was very rough and uneven. We managed to reach the railway track, and the German machine gun fire was frequent and accurate, and the cries of the wounded were frequently calling for stretcher bearers. This was something completely different from what we had previously experienced. Star shells were illuminating the sky. The captain leading us over on horseback was immediately mowed down and both killed. I saw the German machine gun that was pouring bullets continuously into the men on my right. The Germans knew the range, which was not at a great distance, but then both of them were.
We were lying out on the rail track, so I suggested we all together emptied our rifles together on the machine gun that we could see. I emptied my magazine as I got down from my elbows firing position with the idea of reloading. I felt a terrific thump on my back or right shoulder. I described the feeling as if a 10-ton weight hit hard in an area of 1 inch. There was no pain, but I could feel the blood flowing warm down my back. I knew that I had stopped a machine gun bullet. I told the others that I had been hit and passed the food over to the next man. I could see an officer and corporal to my left in a shower hole as dawn was beginning to break. I crawled over to the corporal, was just telling the officer that I...
Here, the teachers and students have a taste of how the soldiers camouflage their faces before going into action. When it is hot, they wear sunglasses.
We started with a name that was the only thing that we were given of this young man who died at only 21 years old. Here we are at Tynecut Cemetery in Belgium. When we looked at this man and we tried to find more about him, we realised that he actually lived not far from where we do, on London Road in Coventry. He was very young when he joined the war and died in 1917 at the age of 21.
He, in fact, lived quite close to Whitley Academy on 29 London Road. He was the son of Emma Ward and the late William Ward. He was in the Devonshire Regiment. His grave reference is XLV-II G6, and we've managed to find him today I feel quite emotional considering he lived so close to us in Coventry, and we came all this way and managed to find his grave. So it's just remembering that 100 years on, they were ordinary guys, and I feel quite touched by that.
Yeah, it's very emotional because even though I don't think I had many family members or any at all that fought in the First World War, this is one of the only people that I've found a connection to as they lived in Coventry, and he was very young and he had a family, and it's just really emotional to know that he's left them behind, and maybe they don't even know that he's here, but we want to show that he is here and he is remembered.
Hiya, we're currently on our last day of our 4-day trip to Belgium and France. We're at Tyncott Cemetery. These last 4 days have been quite emotional, puts quite a lot of things into perspective, doesn't it, when you look at how many people fought and lost their lives. We've had a good experience, haven't we? We've visited so many memorials, cemeteries, museums. It really opens up your eyes into 100 years on from the First World War, just to remember all them people that did lose their lives. Each day has been important, hasn't it? We've really enjoyed it. It's an opportunity I suppose we'll never get again. I've loved it, and there's been times where I felt homesick, and I am looking forward to going back to my own comfort. But then you've got to remember that them soldiers, they didn't get to go back to their own comforts. They were here fighting the war. Today it was rainy, it was horrible, and we were outside and we probably didn't feel like we wanted to be there. But you've got to remember, them soldiers, they fought in miserable weather. They didn't have a choice. So it really does put things into a different light, and I feel really grateful that they gave up there tomorrow for our today. Georgia, something you want to say?
Well, this morning we went to the Landmark Cemetery, which is a cemetery specifically for German soldiers who passed away in the war. But there were 2 British soldiers buried there, and in fact it was a mistake that they were buried there, just a simple mistake. But when I looked upon all of the graves, which instead of like the English and the Canadian and the American cemeteries were flat and they were black and they were just lying in equal spaces, it was very emotional to see the differences in the cemeteries, but also to realise that in death we are all equal, no matter who we fought for, what side we fought for, how we died, how old we were, our gender, our race, we were all equal in death. And I think that it's really moving to know that, and especially because, you know, we did have a big it was emotional experience to see the graves, and there was a few mass graves there where there was a lot of soldiers in one, and it's quite emotional to know that some of them couldn't be recognised. So there's thousands upon thousands of soldiers out there who have never been recognised, but we are all equal, and I just think that that's been very emotional. And then we've come here now to Tyncott Cemetery, where we had our mission of trying to find the soldier from Coventry, and we found him, and that was a very emotional thing because, you know, we had a connection to him. He lived not too far away from us, and I just think that this whole experience has been very emotional. It's opened my eyes to realise that as the younger generation, we do need to remember the sacrifice that these men and women made, and we can't forget. I mean, it's only been 100 years. We need to remember in 200, 300, because it's very significant, and they fought for our today, and I think we need to keep that in mind and keep remembering.
I mean, it is quite easy just to forget because we have worries now. There was World War II since then and wars now, but 100 years ago these men all lost their lives, so we have got to keep that legacy going, and trips like this just show how important it really is. I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Very thankful for this lifetime opportunity, and especially since it's 100 years. It's the Centenary trip, and it's just very significant and important, and I know I'll never forget it.
We've learnt a lot from our tour guides. Yeah.
November 2015. It's the time of the year to remember the fallen during wars. Miss Swing and Georgia and Rhiannon do assemblies for various years. They share their experience and what they have learnt. For example, in Flanders Fields Museum there was a hologram reenacting doctors and nurses who treated injured soldiers from both sides of the firing line. It showed everyone that underneath their uniforms all soldiers were the same. They were treated as equals.
The trip was the Centenary World War I battlefield trip, so that was because it's been 100 years since the First World War. So me and Rhiannon went on this trip with, I think it was 2 students from schools all around the UK, and there was only one other school from Coventry that went. And at the beginning of the trip we were given a soldier who lived in an area nearby, and his name was Anthony Ward, and when he was alive he lived on London Road, so not that far from the school. And we were given his name and we had to find out details about him, so his regiment, how old he was when he died. He was 21. He died in 1917, so just 1 year before the World War ended. And we were given the task to go and find his grave. And we found his grave in the Tyne-Cot Cemetery, and he was one single grave among thousands and thousands of graves. And that was really emotional for us to see, because we had been given this one soldier who we had a slight personal connection to, and there were thousands and thousands of other soldiers there who had no one to come and remember them. So that was really emotional for us to find out.
Okay,
November 17th, 2015. Alan Wood, Guild of Battlefield Guides Military, historian and lecturer, came to our school to talk to Year 7, 8 and 9 students. He was the tour guide during Miss Swing, Georgia and Rhiannon's trip. He brought along real silver cigarette boxes from the wars and other memorabilia, especially for the First World War. Hello, my name is Vivian, Year 9 student reporter.
And my name is Joseph. I'm also a Year 9 student reporter, and we both come to school here at Whitley Academy.
During this project, we have learnt about World War I and how many tragedies and losses it has been through. We learned that any war is the cost of lives. While trying to put this video together, we have also experienced some difficulties about staying very late in school, over 3 hours sometimes for the past week. And we are very committed to this, and we have learnt so much that just shocked us and amazed us at the same time.
But that wasn't the only problem we encountered. With us two not actually going on the trip, it was hard for us to actually put this video together, so we had to rely on information from 3 individuals. First, it was Rhiannon and Georgia, who both actually went on the trip. And third, Mrs. Wing, the staff member who went with the 2 girls on the trip, who, might I add, are both from Post 16. It was an interesting discussion we had with both Miss Wing and the 2 girls, and one of the things I remember they mentioned was about a reenactment that Miss Wing saw on a video, and it was about a nurse who was in a hospital, and both sides of the Western Front were in this hospital, and she said that they were equal in this hospital, no uniform, they were the same.
Yes, there was also a story that intrigued me. It was about a boy, 16 years old, named Herbert Burden. He lied about his age and said he was 18 to enter the army to fight for his country. But 10 months into the war, he was in a death cell. He was trapped in that dark cell by himself. And he wrote a letter to his mother saying, "I hate the sound of shotguns." And that got me thinking, why does he hate the sound of shotguns? And then I realised, in that dark cell by himself, at a very young age, almost as old as my sister, he was trapped with no family. He didn't say goodbye, and he didn't say "I love you." All he could hear next door or at dawn were the sound of gunshots killing innocents that just wanted to fight for their country.
Now you mention that, it's interesting because we want to carry the legacy on, and even though it's been 100 years since World War I, that doesn't matter. The innocent people fought for their lives and fought for our freedom, And we hope that we can pass this legacy on to the future generations, so that in the future, 100 years later, we can still remember World War I as if it's only been a few weeks ago. No.
And we want to share this video to as many people as we can, and to make sure they never forget this, make sure they never forget about World War I.